Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto was reincarnated as Donquixote Doflamingo, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Sasuke looked onward, quite surprised at what he saw. When Naruto had told him that he was planning to build some mansion, he severely underestimated just how large it would be. Already there were construction crews tearing down several of his clan's former homes, making way for the building. Based on how much they were tearing down, it would be more than enough room to fit all of them, probably a dozen more people as well. Well, he certainly doesn't hold back on these things, does he? Sasuke looked over, Sakura having a small smirk on her face as she looked at the construction. He nodded toward her, looking around the compound. Yeah, it's quite the change around here. He looked around, not sure what to think. This was where he grew up, where his clan had lived for a century. He knew that he had agreed for all of this to happen, but standing here, seeing it happen before his eyes, that made him think twice about his decision. He thought back to that moment, thinking about when Naruto asked him to make such a major decision. He remembered how painful it was walking through the empty compound every day. But, when everyone stayed with him, spent time in the normally silent compound, he completely forgot about the pain that Itachi had caused. Deep down, he knew this was the right decision. Naruto had been right. Naruto told him that he would help, and he knew that he wasn't lying. He was stronger now, much stronger. He had friends to help him, to guide him and help him heal from the scars that Itachi had left. Yes, he was glad that Naruto included him in this little family of theirs. Hey, are they going to take your house down too, Sasuke? Temari's voice snapped him out of thoughts, making him look around for a moment. It seemed the construction was slowly wrapping around his own home, meaning that two would soon be gone, remade into the home that Naruto envisioned for them. He nodded toward her, walking toward the front door. It seems so. We'll have to take one of the other houses soon. They probably won't take it down tonight though, so we can stay here one last time. He was glad for that, in all honesty. There were still things that he had to say to this old house, memories that he finally had to let go of. He walked in, Sakura, Temari and Lee following behind him. He didn't have a particularly large house by any means. Sakura and Temari shared one room, Lee and Sasuke shared another. Naruto decided that he deserved his own room, and conveniently decided that Sasuke's was his favorite, and kicked him out of it. It didn't really bother him. He wasn't that attached to his own room, and he and Lee took the guest room, not wanting to stay in Itachi's or his parents' rooms. That left only one more room in the house, and with how Naruto just seemed to gather people around him, he understood why he wanted to build this new house of his. He walked in, heading toward his room quickly and throwing his bag onto his bed. He stretched, heading towards the living room and sitting on the couch, happy to be home and out of the desert. He looked up at the ceiling, hearing everyone settle in around him as he got lost in his thoughts. He had to wonder, what was it with Naruto and gathering people around him? It was something that he found rather strange. He was protective of them, possessive almost. He was easily angered by anyone even insulting him, having had a couple incidents during their trip. Was it because he was an orphan? He turned slightly, seeing Lee head into the kitchen, most likely to start making food. He was another one that was strange. Naruto and Lee seemed to have known each other for years, probably since childhood. Perhaps they were from the same orphanage. Still, they were radically different people, but they had two things in common. They were terrifyingly powerful. Naruto was a true prodigy, using his skill and stratagem to simply unravel his opponents effortlessly. And even if that failed, his strength and speed were seemingly unrivaled, able to easily trade blows with Jiraiya, even at the start of their training. Lee was a bit different. He was like a juggernaut, an unstoppable force with the strength and ferocity to match. Yet he always kept his cool, always unyielding no matter what he faced. He prayed he never saw the day those two seriously fought each other. Still, where did they gain this strength, those techniques? Where did the two even come from? Two no-name orphans becoming that powerful all on their own. Practically impossible. He thought about asking, it came up constantly during the trip, but he never did. After all, what did it matter? They were strong, they were powerful, but more importantly, they were family now. That was what Naruto saw them as. He knew that Naruto would go above and beyond for them, and after all he had done for him, Sasuke knew now that he would do the same. He sat up, walking into the kitchen as Sakura called out for him. It seemed food was almost done. He sat down at the table, Temari setting down plates as Lee began to finish cooking. He looked at the chair at the far end of the table, knowing exactly who it was for. Naruto seemed to love sitting there, though he tried to hide it. He would catch him from time to time, not eating and simply watching him, that ever-present grin of his softening slightly. He sat at the chair next to it, looking up at the clock on the far wall. Naruto had been gone for quite a while, far longer than a simple mission report should take. He frowned, standing up again and walking toward the front door. I'm going to go find Naruto, he should have been back by now. Sakura turned toward the clock for a moment, before nodding and waving toward him. All right, but be quick about it. The food is going to get cold otherwise. He nodded, opening the front door and preparing to walk out. He didn't need to. He looked up, seeing Naruto stand before the door with a wide grin on his face. He sighed, he knew that look. He looked behind him, seeing Neji and Hinata standing behind him and seeming embarrassed. Hinata had Naruto's coat wrapped around her. Not bothering to ask, he stepped aside, giving him room to walk in and giving Naruto a deadpan stare. He simply laughed as he walked in, heading toward the kitchen. Hey, you're no fun, Sasuke. Aren't you even going to ask why they're here? He closed the door as Neji and Hinata walked in, quickly gathering 2 more chairs for the new arrivals. Knowing you, I'm pretty sure I don't want to know. He set the chairs down as everyone greeted each other, Sasuke being the last to get his food and take a seat. Hinata took his former seat, making Sasuke sit at the far end of the table. It was cramped with the 2 extra people, but they all managed. A couple minutes later, he couldn't hold in his curiosity. He set down his chopsticks and looked over at Naruto. So, Naruto looked up toward him, nodding his head to the side and feigning confusion. So, what? He repressed a sigh, already regretting even trying to find out more. So, what happened after you left today? A light seemed to go off in Naruto's head, though Sasuke knew he was just messing with him. Ah, yes. So, first I went off to talk with Tsunade about the mission in Wave, then I spent some time with Konohamaru, that strange kid in the orange jumpsuit. After that, I walked around and ran into Hinata and Neji and invited them to have dinner with us, sent a quarter of the Hyuga clan to the hospital, and we also went shopping to look at furniture for the new. Sasuke's eyes snapped open, motioning for Naruto to stop talking. Wait, you did what now? He feigned ignorance again, merely his head to the other side as he stared at him. Well, we're going to need new furniture, of course. As nice as your stuff is, Sasuke, I prefer something a bit more. Temari interrupted this time, also seeming to catch on. Not that. What was that about sending the Hyuga clan to the hospital? He grinned toward her, picking up a piece of beef with his chopsticks and taking a small bite. Well, I sent a bunch of them to the hospital. Or, they should be there by now. I didn't take them there myself, of course. Sasuke put his elbows on the table, resting his face in his hands for a second before looking up slightly, staring Naruto in the eye, or glasses in this case. And why did you send a quarter of the Hyuga clan to the hospital? Naruto was about to answer before stopping, taking on a confused expression. Finally, he answered, laughing maddeningly. Hey, I have no idea. Sasuke groaned as Naruto continued to laugh, the S of beef hanging out of his mouth. Neji shakenly raised his hand up, thankfully being the one to offer some sort of explanation. Actually, that would be because of us. Lady Hinata and I were in a bit of trouble in the clan. Naruto found us and decided to take us in. Though, we didn't ask him to fight the clan head. Sakura spoke up this time, sounding shocked at what had happened while they were at home. You fought the clan head too. Naruto placed his head in his palm, thinking for a minute. I think so. Honestly, they went down so fast I barely even noticed. Hey. Sasuke shook his head, getting up sighing heavily. He looked over at Neji, nodding briefly toward him. Well, we have another room for you too, As long as you don't mind sharing a room. There's 2 beds in there too, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll go get it ready for you too. Hinata finally was able to speak, looking very uncomfortable. Thank you, Sasuke. He sighed again, before smiling slightly toward her. He nodded, turning around and heading toward the other room. It had happened again, it would seem. Someone was in trouble, and needed help, needed guidance, and Naruto was there to save them. It was a bizarre thing, watching everything just seem to work itself out. Naruto was just that kind of person. When you were around him, it felt like you were untouchable, because he was right there with you. He just felt invincible. He walked into the room, coughing slightly as dust started to spring up. Their own rooms were surprisingly well kept over their trip, most likely because of Sakura coming to clean every now and then, but this room was unused, and very dusty. It was his parents' room, one that he hadn't been in many years. He opened the window, trying to vent the room out and get rid of the dust. He started cleaning the surfaces of the room as well, grabbing the old sheets of the beds, his parents' sheets. He shook his head, driving the thoughts from his head. These weren't their sheets anymore. Now, they belonged to Neji and Hinata, if they decided to stay, that is. He took the dirty sheets and placed them in the washing machine in another room, heading back to the kitchen as he waited for the machine to do its work. Everyone was done eating by the time he got back, Sasuke quickly finishing his own food. He looked upward, not quite done with the previous conversation. I trust that you have a plan for the aftermath. Tsunade won't be happy about this, you know. Naruto smiled toward him, leaning back in his chair. You worry too much, Sasuke. Don't worry about Tsunade, I can handle her. For now, we have a bigger problem to take care of. He tilted his head in confusion, wondering what he meant. Naruto gestured to Hinata and Neji, explaining shortly after. If I remember right, you two have a curse seal placed on you by the main branch, right? Neji nodded, leaning forward with hope on his face. Yes. Do you think you can get rid of it? Naruto motioned for him to remove his headband, Neji doing so swiftly. Naruto placed a finger on his forehead, the X-shaped mark beginning to glow slightly before symbols began to flow outward, stretching down Neji's neck and toward his back. Naruto seemed to be in thought, holding his finger on Neji's forehead. Let's head to this new room of yours. I'll need a closer look at the symbols on your back. Neji nodded, standing up and following Naruto as he made his way to their new room. Hinata got up to follow before stopping abruptly and bowing to them. Thank you for the food. She rushed back to follow them, Sasuke shaking his head at the revelation of recent events. His first day back from a tiresome mission and he does this. Why am I not surprised? He couldn't help but chuckle, looking over to Sakura who was washing some of the dishes. She looked back toward him. What is it, Sasuke? He smiled, tilting his head in Naruto's direction. You were right, he really doesn't hold back, does he? Doffy sat on the floor, looking at the symbols played across Neji's back. He could undo this. It would be difficult, it would take a long time, but he could undo it. Honestly, he was rather impressed with how intricate the seal was. It was designed to be easy to apply, but extremely difficult to remove. The one who had the seal could not remove it themselves, requiring someone else to remove it for them. Even then, it would take hours to do so, at least as far as he could tell. If he messed up even once, there was a good chance Neji would die, but he was confident that he would succeed. He wasn't surprised at how strong the seal was though. The thing was supposedly built for generations by the main branch to what it is now. Still, it seems that they grew complacent. As far as he knew, no one in the main branch had the skill necessary to remove something like this. They were just copycats in a way, simply following a set of instructions to create the seal. They had no real idea how it worked, and that meant if he could remove one, he could remove them all. He grinned, taking one final look at the seal before standing up. He walked around Neji, looking down and staring him in the eye. Well, the good news is I can remove the thing if you want. Neji looked like he wanted to celebrate but held off, keeping up with his wording. And the bad news? He sat down, hunching over to be completely level with him. No bad news really, just something I have to know. There's no point in removing that seal if it ends up there later. So, I want to know what you're planning. What's going on in the Hyuga clan right now? Why should I remove that seal of yours? Neji looked down for a moment, looking up at Hinata who sat on one of the beds. He sighed, before looking back toward him, straightening his back. About a year ago, I and a few other members of the branch family decided to begin organizing a rebellion against the main family. Doffy frowned, gesturing for him to continue. We were tired of being the main family's servants, of having to carry this seal with us for all our lives. The threat of pain and death is constant under the main branch. If you can't be useful to the village as a ninja, then you are nothing more than AS to the main family. Doffy nodded slightly, wanting to know more. So, what was the plan then? With the way that seal is designed, they could KO you almost instantly if they wanted. You would have stood no chance against them. Neji nodded grimly. Yes, you're right. The seal would have prevented us from making any significant resistance. Instead, we wanted to trap the main branch in an unwinnable situation. The branch family in its entirety would make a stand, telling the main branch that we would no longer tolerate the use of the caged bird seal. As a part of the agreement between the Hokage and the various clans in the village, the main branch could NK any Hyuga who were active duty ninja. They could cause us pain, yes, but they could NK us. Doffy began to see the problem immediately. But the ones who weren't ninja were expendable. They were the ones you needed to convince. Neji nodded. Yes, it was a risky plan, and almost doomed to failure, but it was all we had. We had shown that if things continued the way they were, then the branch family would simply cease to exist. Without the branch family, the Hyuga clan's population would drop to unacceptable levels. Excluding Hinata, there are only 11 main branch family members, compared to around 100 branch members. I see then. Without the branch ninja, they would receive less funding from missions and drop in wealth. Essentially, they would stop being the noble clan they are now. You wanted to threaten their wallets, instead of their lives. Neji nodded gravely, avoiding looking at Hinata. Doffy filled the silence. Still, not the greatest plan by any means. In fact, I don't really see how you could have accomplished anything. What did you think would happen afterwards? Did you think that the two branches would just live together peacefully? After all of that? Neji didn't answer, looking toward the floor. No, the main branch would have been far better off just KO you all off save for the ninja. Then, they would just wait for you to have children and give them the seal just like before. They never would have let you go. You're a fool for thinking otherwise. Neji refused to respond, waiting for him to continue. Still, it was a pretty bold plan if nothing else, even if it was stupid. Why, Neji? Doffy stopped, turning slightly, and looking at Hinata. She had a fierce glare on her face, uncharacteristic of the normally quiet girl. Why did you organize all of this? What made you think any of this would be worth all this trouble? Neji was silent for a moment before looking upward. Because I can't stand it anymore, Lady Hinata. Hinata looked even angrier at his words, standing up quickly and glaring down at him. You think you're the only one suffering at the hands of the seal. Everyone feels the same pain you do. That is no excuse to simply. No, that's not it. Hinata stopped, Neji continuing a second later. All those years ago, I made a horrible decision. During our duel, I attacked you with everything I had. I hated you. I wanted nothing more than to see you suffer the same pain I felt as a member of the branch family. I wanted you to understand exactly how I and everyone else felt. Neji took a breath, continuing. But, it was only years later that I realized. You already knew that pain. Just like us, Hiashi subjugated you as well. You never had the seal, you were never a member of the branch family, but I knew that you understood us far more than my younger self ever realized. I wasn't tired of being a part of the branch family. I was tired of seeing you in the branch family. I was tired of seeing that seal on your forehead. That was why. The two were silent, Doffy seeing the chance to get his answer. So, tell me Neji, what are you going to do now? Neji took a breath, before gaining a determined look on his face. He faced toward him, his eyes seeming to burn with passion. Naruto, I know I have no right to ask this of you. Already, you've done more than I could ever ask. Still, I must, for the sake of Lady Hinata and everyone in the branch family. Neji bowed his head, his forehead touching the cold wooden floor. Please, help us save our family. Doffy grinned, standing up and maneuvering behind Neji. He pulled the boy back up, ready to get to work on the seal. Alright, sounds like fun. Hey hey hey. He got to work, beginning to undo the caged bird seal and being sure memorize every bit of it. He felt his shadow clone dispel near the hospital, letting him know everything that it had heard. Originally, he had Danzo follow to see how Pain knew he would be in the mist, already suspecting Danzo. Now he knew something far more important. Danzo had F up. He could never prove that he was involved in the old man's death, but Danzo also being involved in this incident as well. There was no such thing as coincidences, not in his mind. Danzo had messed with his family. He had threatened Hinata and Neji, and he was going to pay. Death would be far too forgiving. His chakra flowed through the caged bird seal, Doffy carving the shape of it into his mind. He knew exactly what to do with it. Tsunade sighed as she watched Naruto sit down in the chair in front of her desk. His grin was as wide as ever, leaning back in the cushioned chair as he rested his feet on top of the edge of her desk. She scowled slightly at the look he gave her. He knew why he was here. Yesterday, she was shocked to hear that the blonde had sent a good majority to the No one had but it wasn't looking good. She was too tired to deal with it that night, and according to the staff they were all stable for the most part. Still, a ninja putting a clan head in the hospital unprovoked was something she couldn't ignore. So, here she was, ready to give Naruto the obligatory S on the wrist. That was the infuriating part about this. They both knew she couldn't really do anything. Naruto was stronger than her already, that she didn't doubt. Sure, she was Hokage, but Naruto was too important to the village to do anything more. So, what's up, Tsunade? His words shook her from her thoughts, making her stare at his red-tinted glasses. She leaned onto her desk, folding her hands together professionally, ready to get this over with. See the crap, Naruto. What the hell happened yesterday? He laughed. He simply leaned his head back and laughed. It was an eerie thing, really. Something that she hadn't quite expected from him. Still, she knew that he was often like this. Reckless, too strong and too powerful to care about the consequences of his actions. This was just a line that he had never crossed, at least to her knowledge. Naruto was smart though, not a mindless sadist. He wouldn't do something like this without a reason. His head stayed backward, but she could tell his eyes were staring directly at her. Yesterday was a busy day, you'll have to be more specific than that. Hey hey hey. He was enjoying this, dragging things out for his own amusement. She resisted the urge to place her head in her hands and pushed onward, wanting to hurry things along. I'm talking about you assaulting the Hyuga clan yesterday. Now, what happened? You aren't someone that would do something like this without a reason, so tell me what's going on. His head leaned forward again, tilting his head slightly, then began speaking a moment later. Well, let's see. I was walking in front of their compound and I found Neji helping a crying Hinata in the middle of the road. So, I asked her what was going on, and she said her father threatened her with something or other, wasn't sure at the time. So, I walked in there to teach him some manners. Of course, I didn't know what he looked like, so I just started guessing. Pretty sure I got him though. She nodded slowly, finally understanding what had happened. She had spoken to Hiashi this morning to get his side of the story. He had told her the conversation he had with his daughter. It wasn't something she agreed with, but it wasn't something she could interfere with either. The Hyuga could simply state that it was a clan affair that didn't affect her ability in the field, and there would be nothing she could do. It wasn't exactly a law, more of an unwritten rule. When the village was first established, this was the agreement her grandfather made with the various clans to convince them to join the Hidden Leaf. To violate that would jeopardize the trust the other clans had in her and the village. Still, this was rather surprising. She always knew that Naruto was rather protective of his friends through Jiraiya's observations during their trip, but she had no idea it was like this. He said he didn't even know how severe the situation was. For all he knew, it was just a rather heated disagreement between the two, yet he didn't hesitate to take whatever action he deemed necessary. That was dangerous. That was exploitable. But she trusted Naruto. She believed that, with his strength and intelligence, he would be more than capable of protecting those around him. She had to. She was always a gambler, and she was betting everything on Naruto. Even if he made decisions that she didn't exactly agree with, she had to support him. She took a breath and gave Naruto the news that Hiashi had told her. Well, You must have the luck of the devil then, Naruto. For whatever reason, the clan head of the Hyuga clan, Hinata's father, wants to brush this issue aside. I assume they want to save face and show that this incident isn't enough to bother the Hyuga clan, but honestly I'm not sure. Naruto raised an eyebrow, apparently also surprised to hear that. She continued, wanting to move on from this. Now, I'm going to assume that Hinata and Neji are going to be staying with you from now on. As Hokage, I'm not supposed to interfere with clan affairs. This means I cannot make any decisions on where the two live, whether it's with you or the Hyuga. He chuckled lightly, lowering his raised brow. My, aren't you rather crafty? I trust you didn't bring me here just to tell me that, did you? She watched as his head leaned to her side, where Jiraiya was waiting on the roof outside her office. She shook her head. No, Jiraiya is back a day earlier than expected, and you said you wanted to speak with him. The window opened swiftly, Jiraiya stepping inside with his usual smile on his face. The window closed behind him, Jiraiya speaking to his protege. Well, I've heard you've been busy, kid. What's going on that's so important anyways? Tsunade nodded, also curious what Naruto wanted. He wasn't one that asked for help for assistance, often simply not needing it in the first place. For him to ask Jiraiya of all people for something was rather strange, to put it lightly. Naruto took on a serious expression, his feet removing themselves from her desk and placed on the floor. He leaned forward, giving Jiraiya his full attention. I want you to unlock the Nine Tails seal. Absolutely not. She stared slightly shocked at their interaction. The two met each other with stern expressions, neither of them wavering in the decision. She decided to intervene before things spiraled out of control. Okay, hold on. Naruto, why do you want to unlock the seal? He was silent for a moment, continuing to look at Jiraiya before facing her. I've been talking to the fox. He said that he can communicate with the other tailed beasts if the seal is removed. He can find them. She understood now, voicing her thoughts. You want to find the other Jinchuriki and tailed beasts, get to them before the Akatsuki do. She turned to Jiraiya, already guessing why he had different thoughts about Naruto's plan. So, I'm guessing that. Jiraiya nodded, confirming her thoughts. Yes. During our training, we tried to get a handle on the fox's chakra. He couldn't do it. He barely got to the second tail before losing control, and even the first was difficult for him. Hell, drawing any of it was having effects on him. Opening it entirely, out of the question. Jiraiya sighed, crossing his arms. Besides, what makes you think that the fox would even help you anyway? Naruto scowled, standing up. Is it really so surprising? The Akatsuki are after him as well. It only makes sense that he would want to help defeat them. Whatever they want, it's obvious that the tailed beasts are important to their plan. The more we help stop that, the better off we'll be. She looked toward Jiraiya, and she could see it. She saw the conflict in his eyes. Trusting the Nine Tails to help them wasn't something that was easy for either of them. As far as she knew, the fox was a natural disaster. A monster in every sense of the word. To Jiraiya, it was worse than that. The fox was the reason behind Minato's death. He simply didn't want its help. But she knew Jiraiya. She knew that Jiraiya trusted and believed in Naruto more than anything. He wanted to trust him with this, but he just couldn't. She knew how to help. How about this then? They turned toward her, wondering what she meant. In Anbu, we have someone that should be able to help you gain control of the fox's chakra. I wanted to send him with you on your trip, but he was on a long-term mission and couldn't be called back. I can get him back in 3 days, and he can help you gain control of the fox's chakra. Naruto, if you can gain control of 5 tails of chakra, then Jiraiya will open the seal for you, got it? They both grimaced, neither fully accepting of the agreement, but it was better than nothing. She sighed, ready for a drink. Now, is there anything else? Naruto shook his head, walking out of the office. Jiraiya did the same, waiting for him to leave. She called out to him before he left, catching him just as he opened the door. Head to your team's training ground in 3 days, he'll meet you there. She saw him nod and close the door behind him. With that done, she turned back to Jiraiya, ready for his report. So, how did it go? Jiraiya sighed heavily, taking a seat. Not good. Mifune agreed to hosting a cage meeting, but the Stone and Cloud don't find it serious enough to warrant something like that. She nodded, grabbing a bottle of sake from her drawer and 2 small cups. She began pouring, talking all the while. Didn't think it would work. Still, we have to do something about this. If the other nations don't take this seriously, it could spell disaster down the road. She took a drink at the same time as Jiraiya, the man pouring the next set for them. Well, at least the mist seems to be with us along with the sand. The only thing we can do is wait for the Akatsuki to make a move and prove how dangerous they really are. She growled as she downed the next cup, not liking the idea. You know that's not ideal, Jiraiya. We can't just wait around and let the Akatsuki do what they want. Naruto is right, we have to stop them and track them down first. The best way to do that is by tracking down the Jinchuriki. Any luck in that at least? He nodded hesitantly, something that worried her a bit. I've been able to gather that the 3 tails has manifested again in mist, though we don't know its exact location yet. The 6 tails Jinchuriki is still missing though. No luck there. The hidden stones Jinchuriki seem to be a mystery as well, no one seeming to know where they are. As for the cloud, the 2 tails left the village on a mission recently, though I don't know where. The Raikage's brother is still in the village. She nodded, counting in her head. And the last one, the 7 tails. He snorted loudly at that, taking another drink. Apparently she left the hidden waterfall a couple days ago. According to my sources, she was tired of being confined in the village all the time. No idea where she is honestly. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose, thinking about what Jiraiya had said. Even with his spy network, they only confidently knew the location of one other tailed beast, besides Naruto and Gaara of course. It wasn't good, but they had to make it work, they had no other choice. Gather everything you can on the 3 and 7 tails. A tailed beast can't hide for long, and the 7 tails Jinchuriki is young, right? Jiraiya nodded toward her. Good, she'll be less experienced than the hidden stone and mist Jinchuriki and easier to find. Track them down, Jiraiya. He nodded toward her, getting out of the chair. I'll stay in the village until Tenzo comes back and give Naruto the same intel before I leave. He began walking out, before she stopped him. One more thing, Jiraiya. He stopped, turning around. She continued. Gather more intel on the Akatsuki themselves as well. I trust you've read the report I gave you. He nodded, a grim look in his eyes. She ignored it, continuing. Minato is back. This leader, Pain, is dangerous. Orochimaru is also a member of them and is not holding back. More worrisome, is Pain's eyes. Katsuyu mentioned them in passing, but I think we both know what they are. The Rinnegan. His voice was quiet, whisper-like. She kept going, not questioning him. Naruto never mentioned it, but he probably doesn't know the significance of it. It isn't something mentioned in the academy. Find out who Pain is, Jiraiya. He nodded, placing a foot on the windowsill. Trust me, Tsunade. He looked toward her, his face set in stone, a furious look engraved upon it. I'm already on it. He jumped out, Tsunade leaning back in her chair. She took one more swig before placing the bottle back in its drawer. She looked outside, realizing that it was barely noon, and she was already drinking. That look Jiraiya had, she didn't know what made him so angry, but she trusted he knew what he was doing. She had her own job to do. She looked over to the stack of papers to her right, grabbing the top sheet and placing it in front of her. She got back to work, thinking about the future of the village, and the threat the Akatsuki were making themselves. She couldn't help but laugh as she ran through the forest, looking around the new landscape around her. She had never been so far away from the village before, and the thrill of traveling through unfamiliar lands had never over the past few days. She had honestly lost track of how long she had been gone. She didn't hate her village, not by any means, but she was tired of being confined to the village for so long. She wanted to explore the world, be free to meet others who didn't know of her burden and make friends in new lands. She cringed slightly as she thought of home. Shibuki would be mad, like, really mad. But he would understand eventually. Besides, she wouldn't be gone for long anyways. Maybe one more day, then she would head back. Plus, it was his fault anyway. She wanted to go to the Chunin exams, but the guy said no. He said it would be too dangerous, and that she shouldn't reveal herself as a Jinchuriki. PFFT, whatever. She was super strong and staying in the village all the time was very boring. No one there talked to her very much, and there was nothing to do but train. Quite frankly, she needed a change of scenery, a vacation of sorts. She smiled as she dove off the branch she was on, bug-like wings sprouting from her lower back as she began to fly around the trees. She saw light, the trees disappearing from her sight as she gazed upon a wide, grassy field. The sun shone down upon it, the light giving it a magical glow. She felt the wind rush past her face, her smile widening. She looked down, shocked to see 3 people walking down a dirt path through the field. She grinned, swooping down in front of them as fast as she could and stopping right in front of the 3. Boo! She grinned, but it fell slightly when she noticed that she didn't scare them. She shrugged it off though, hovering off the ground with her hands folded behind her as she introduced herself to the mysterious people. Hee. Hi there, my name's Fu. It's nice to meet ya. The 3 stood there, seeming slightly shocked at her appearance. She couldn't help but feel a swell of pride at that, knowing the effect her brilliance had on others. The one with the silvery hair turned to the other, seemingly bewildered. Hey, Kakazu, you seein' this S? This ain't who I think it is it? She was slightly worried that he seemed to know who she was but shrugged it off when she saw the headband on the other. Hey, you're from the hidden waterfall too. That's awesome. She was smiling but stopped when she looked behind the 2 in front of her. The 3rd man was behind them. He was large, heavily muscled and rather intimidating. The thing that caught her attention was the thing he was hauling on his shoulder. It was wrapped in a large sheet, a mass of blonde hair coming out of the end she could see. A body. There was something else about him. His skin seemed to have cracks running along it, and the sclera of his eyes were pitch black. She chuckled nervously, backing away slightly. The waterfall ninja spoke up as she began to back away. It would seem so, hidden. It is quite fortunate that we would run into 2 Jinchuriki in one day. I told you skipping your stupid ritual would. She ignored his next words, jumping backward as fast as she could. The large man dropped the body, rushing toward her quickly. He was fast, unbelievably so. She gathered Chomai's chakra, creating hundreds of strings and wrapping them around her, quickly forming a cocoon. It was smaller than she liked, but she didn't have time to make it any larger. She made a hand sign, taking a breath and ready to drop her cocoon and release her scale powder. She didn't know who these guys were, but she wanted nothing to do with them. Just as she was ready to drop the cocoon, a hand, covered in lightning, burst through the wall without resistance. The hand grabbed her, wrapping around her mouth and pulling, dragging her through her cocoon. The lightning coursed through her scream muffled by the hand around her mouth. She pushed the pain away, gathering more of Chomai's chakra. Red chakra began surrounding her, forming a cloak around her. She prepared to attack the arm grabbing her but didn't get the chance. A sharp knee from the man drove into her stomach, knocking the wind out of her. She couldn't breathe, but she didn't give up. Chomai's chakra began to peel at her skin, the familiar but painful stage 2 cloak beginning to manifest. The man didn't seem to care, using his arm and her head into the ground underneath her. She felt the ground instantly cave under his strength. She could feel a crater quickly form around her, the once beautiful field being turned to dust. He lifted her up and down once again. She felt rock and stone crumble as she was driven further into the earth. She was losing consciousness now. She felt her connection to Chomei begin to slip, the chakra she was borrowing begin to slip from her grasp. She could hear the tailed beast say something to her, but she couldn't make it out, her head filled with stars. She felt her limp body rise once more, and quickly down one final time. She heard and felt something crack, and she had the feeling it wasn't the bedrock this time. The hand let go, and she tried to focus her eyes. She looked upward, seeing the dark-skinned man stand above her, the other 2 higher up at the edge of the deep crater. Man, kinda glad we brought him along. He makes things easier, doesn't he, Kakazu? The words felt far away, slowly beginning to drift even further. Enough, we'll take her with us. The statue has been placed in the hidden sound this time. We'll be meeting with Orochimaru's subordinates soon, so let's get going. Leader's delay has already wasted enough time. She blinked rapidly, but her vision darkened rather than cleared. She felt herself being lifted, darkness soon overcoming her. Doffy watched as the Jonin walked onto the training ground, Jiraiya beside him. He was rather upset that Jiraiya didn't open the seal right away, but he knew that convincing him would take more than intimidation. If he wanted his way, He would have to prove he could handle Kurama's chakra, but that was no issue. He was planning to achieve that anyway. The Jonin looked up toward him, seeming surprised that he had to look upward at someone much younger than him. Ah, hello there. I assume that you're Naruto then. My name is Yamato, and I'm going to be the one helping you in your training. To say he wasn't impressed would be an understatement. The Jonin known as Yamato was the definition of ordinary. Nothing about him stood out, though he supposed that was a good thing if you were in Anbu. Something else was bothering him though. His aura seemed familiar for some reason. He knew that he never sensed this man before, but he couldn't shake that he had already sensed him before somewhere. Perhaps this was one of the Anbu that guarded him during his new youth that he couldn't remember. Either way, it didn't matter right now, he was more interested in something else. All right, Yamato. Tell me, just how can you help me control the fox's chakra? You don't seem that special to me. The man chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his head. Jiraiya decided to help the man. Yamato here is quite special actually. You see, there is a reason he's been in the Anbu for so long. We've been keeping him hidden. Right now, he is the only known user of the wood style. Doffy raised an eyebrow at that. I see, and how exactly is that supposed to help anything? Yamato spoke next, eager to explain. Well, you see Naruto, the wood style can actually be used to suppress a tailed beast's chakra. So, I can help in your training by suppressing the fox's chakra when it begins to overwhelm you. He tilted a head at that, slightly curious. Is that so? And why is wood style able to suppress his chakra? Jiraiya let out a breath at that, getting his attention. To be honest, no one really knows. The first Hokage was able to pacify the Nine Tails by himself using his wood style. But, unfortunately, I'm not as powerful as the first Hokage. Doffy let out a sigh, already getting a headache as he thought about things. Okay, so how are you going to help me if you're not able to suppress the Nine Tails, and how do you even have wood style in the first place? I thought Tsunade was the last of the Senju clan now. Jiraiya stepped forward, getting something from his pocket. How Yamato has the wood style is a story for another time. For now, this is how we'll get around Yamato not being as strong as the first. A necklace dangled from Jiraiya's hand, one that he recognized. Tsunade's necklace. What does that have to do with anything? Jiraiya grinned toward him, quickly looping it around his neck. That thing there is infused with the first chakra. Yamato can use the chakra inside to supplement his own, allowing him to more easily suppress the Nine Tails as long as you're wearing it. Doffy sighed, having enough of the explanations and ready to get started with things. Whatever, let's just get started then. What do you need, Yamato? The Jonin grinned slightly, clasping his hands together. Hokage-style 60-year-old technique, entering society with bliss-bringing hands. Wooden pillars with spikes facing toward him began to erupt from the ground, forming a circle around him. Yamato sat on the ground, his palm facing toward him as he adopted a serious expression. All you have to do is stay inside the circle and I can suppress the chakra whenever we need to. He gave the man a look, taking a seat as Jiraiya walked off to stand near Yamato. You really need to work on the name of that technique. He took a breath as he prepared himself, Kurama already taking the hint and beginning to give him some chakra. He felt it coil outward from his stomach, feeling it burn through his body. It was always like this, like fire running through his body, boiling like bee. He took the pain in stride. He had felt worse, after all. The heat he felt could never compare to. I'm gonna survive no matter what you do to me and I will come K every single one of you. He grit his teeth, the chakra in his body continuing to course through him. He felt something within him begin to sway but kept going, no longer needing to hold back. He gathered more of Kurama's chakra, feeling the first tail begin to manifest behind him. He grabbed more, letting it travel throughout his body as they're celestial dragons. Don't K them, make them suffer for the rest of their lives. It was happening again. He was losing control of his body. He could feel his mind beginning to get lost in his memories. His body burned, but it wasn't from the chakra. He could feel rage welling up inside of him. He could hear something in the background, past the roaring flames that seemed to come from all around him. It sounded like laugh. Why did you take away the power I had? We can't undo what you've done now. I'm going back to the Holy Land, by taking your head. His vision was completely darkened now, encompassed by a roaring flame. He could see them past the red-hot glow, the crowd of people begging for his death. He felt his vision turn, looking behind him and seeing the man once again. He heard him speak, his voice grating on the trillions of nerves throughout his body. Doflamingo, Rosinant, I'm sorry you had to have a father like me. He roared, an explosion of energy snuffing out the flames, the crowd falling, unconscious. He raised his hand, the pistol in his grasp rising with it, pushing up against the man's skull. He pulled as hard as he could, feeling the trigger. Naruto. He opened his eyes, seeing Jiraiya look at him with slight concern. He composed himself quickly, refusing to look affected by what he had seen. How long was I out? Jiraiya smiled slightly, helping him up. He had only just realized that he was laying on the ground now. Just a few seconds. Seems like Yamato really can help you. Usually you're out for almost a half an hour. He nodded curtly, looking over at Yamato who seemed to be winded, a bead of sweat dripping down his temple. How far did I get? Jiraiya stood up straight, pulling him along with him. He sighed slightly. Two tails again. It seems like Yamato can help you recover more quickly, but he can't actually help you control the chakra itself. That part's up to you. He nodded, not really caring one way or the other. Jiraiya clapped his hands, getting his attention. Well, I need to get going. Got more intel to gather and I have some info for. He was interrupted as a puff of smoke erupted beside him. It was a messenger toad, one that he knew was responsible for sending him critical reports from his spy network. Jiraiya grabbed the scroll that unrolled from the toad's mouth, the toad disappearing a second later. He unfurled it, reading it quickly. His face folded into a grimace, and he knew something was wrong. What is it? Jiraiya looked toward him after he asked, sighing heavily. Trouble. One of my informants caught wind that the cloud's Jinchuriki, the two tails, was grabbed by the Akatsuki. That was yesterday. His eyes narrowed, his chakra flowing through his body. Where is he? Where's the Jinchuriki now? Jiraiya brushed a hand through his long hair, giving him a regretful look. Actually, and no clue. They couldn't track down where they were going. They were intercepted by unmarked ninja. He grinned toward the man, walking back to the village. He heard Jiraiya from behind him. Where are you going, Naruto? His haki pulsed outward, quickly focusing on the one that could help him. He had been busy getting everyone settled in the new house over the last few days, but now he had time. Going to get some intel. You get going, Jiraiya, I'll find out where that Jinchuriki is. He ignored their words about training, he was done with it for today. He had something more important right now, a private meeting that was long overdue. Danzo walked through the corridor, his root ninja lining the walls to his office. He was in his hidden base under the Hokage monument, one that wasn't on any official records. Things were going well today, having gotten a report that his ninja were able to suppress Jiraiya's spy network with moderate success. More importantly, was the package waiting in his office, the new arm that Orochimaru had promised him. He had waited a long time for this, and already was preparing the surgery room to attach the limb to his body. With that and the hidden Uchiha records he had acquired, he could increase his chances of survival should he be confronted by the Akatsuki. He wasn't a fool, he knew he was getting old. Hiruzen's death had showed the effects that age had done, and Hiruzen was stronger than he was. If he couldn't defeat Orochimaru by himself, then he stood no chance against foes equally as powerful. But, with the Izanagi, he could gain an advantage like no other. It wasn't perfect, of course. It would take time to learn how to use the technique. According to Orochimaru and Madara, Hashirama's cells would make it much easier to learn and use the Izanagi, just like how they enhanced Shisui's Sharingan. The Uchiha records confirmed that the Izanagi was a true ability, Madara hadn't lied about that. Still, he had to be careful. They didn't know about Shisui's Sharingan, and he was sure that Itachi would never tell either about such a powerful ability. He was walking a fine line. One wrong move would spell his death, but he was confident that he would come out on top. He just needed to bide his time. He approached the end of the hallway, looking over to Fu at his side. Go make sure the surgical room is prepped and ready. I want no complications. The Yamanaka nodded, turning around and about to make his way to another part of the hideout. Fu stopped when one of the ninja fell over suddenly, unconscious. Danzo stopped, his cane resting on the floor as he looked at the ninja directly to his right. He was on the floor, standing against the wall one moment and unconscious the next. He tilted his head toward the downed ninja, the others around him knowing what to do. The ninja to his left, Torun, walked in front of him, making his way to inspect the ninja. He fell right before his feet, also unconscious. Danzo narrowed his only visible eye, looking around calmly. His eye widened when he saw what was happening. It was happening again. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. One by one, the ninja lining the walls began to fall. He looked around, wondering what was happening. Fu fell eventually, signaling him that it was time to start moving. He began shuffling quickly through the hallway, watching with shock as all his ninja fell like stones. He had never seen anything like it. How was this happening? If it was something airborne, he would be affected as well. Just what was going on? It was then that he heard it. It answered his question only partly. One piece of a puzzle that was far larger than he had ever thought. Danzo thought himself as a hardened man, one that had lived through war and had seen hell. Even so, the laughter that echoed through the hallways foretold a demon that he could never comprehend. Hey, hey, hey. He moved more quickly, rushing through the hallway toward his office. He could make a stand there. He had more ninja there, and they were hopefully not affected by whatever was going on. He could hear footsteps, slow and steady, echoing off the walls. How did he find him? Why was he here? What did he know? He reached the door, opening it swiftly and stepping inside. He essed the door behind him, grimacing at what he saw inside. The four ninja were on the floor, unconscious. He grimaced, stepping forward and turning toward the door, his chakra beginning to rumble through his body. He found himself looking at someone's chest, pink feathers lining his peripheral vision. How did a sudden pressure ess into him, causing him to buckle slightly? He felt something grab his wrists and ankles, pulling him upward and holding him slightly above the air. He looked up slightly, seeing the face of the man holding him captive, refusing to flinch at the view he had. His face was split in a wide grin, his brows furrowed almost violently. He could see veins rippling in his forehead, threatening to burst forth and strangle him. He caught a glimpse of his hands, his fingers moving wildly and violently, wanting to know, needing to be used to rip him apart. He could feel chakra beginning to leak from his body, the pressure around him increasing more and more. The walls began to crack and split. Stones fell from the ceiling as it buckled slightly from the strength of his chakra. He calmed himself, his mind racing and trying to figure out what to do. I need to stay calm here. If he wanted me I would be already. He wants something from me. I just have to play things right and survive this encounter. Once I have that arm. You seem surprised to see me. Did you really think I would let you do whatever you wanted? He stayed calm, readying a response, deciding to feign innocence for now. He didn't know what Naruto knew, and he didn't want to reveal anything he didn't have to. Oh, and tell me, just what is it you think I've done? Naruto chuckled, the strings tightening painfully around him. You must think you're so clever, Danzo. The only reason I never KU was because I never considered you a threat. Hey, hey, hey. To be honest, I still don't. He kept calm as Naruto began to laugh, refusing to flinch as the fierce look from before returned. But, you messed up. I never knew if that intel Kabuto gained came from you. After all, he could have been lying or been lied to. But, I know that you were responsible for what happened to Hinata and Neji. He didn't react, but inside he was panicking slightly. How could he have known though? There's no way that he could know about Koto Matsukami, so how could he have? You seem surprised. This was worrying now. Naruto was reading him like a book. This wasn't normal. No normal ninja could read him like this. It would take someone with years of experience. It would take someone who had spent at least a decade manipulating others to catch on to him like this. Just how the hell was? Did you really think I wouldn't find it odd that something like that happened so soon after I returned? Did you think I wouldn't suspect you immediately afterward? Such arrogance. I had you followed while I was busy cleaning up the Hyuga compound. And I heard a rather interesting conversation afterward. No, that's impossible. There's no way he could follow me without me or my guards noticing. But don't worry, Danzo, I'm not going to KU. No, I have something better in mind for you. Right now, I need your help, or, more specifically, I need your spies. He knew what he wanted. He had gotten the report earlier today. You want to know the Two Tails location? Naruto's head tilted slightly. That's right, but you're not going to tell me that right now. No, there's something else we have to take care of first. He grit his teeth, deciding to take a stand now. Naruto needed information only he had, which meant he had the upper hand here. And just what makes you think I'll tell you anything? Naruto laughed. It was a sick thing, full of malice and hate. That's simple. Because, first, I'm going to make you pay for what you did to Neji and Hinata. Naruto placed a glowing finger on his forehead, Danzo struggling all the while. He felt pain, a burning pain exploding throughout his skull. His chakra raced, trying to form a S of wind that he could send toward the blonde, but it didn't work. He felt Naruto's chakra course through him, interrupting all his attempts to form his techniques. He felt something else burn. His skin, he realized. There was something being burned onto his forehead. He felt B begin to soak the bandages covering his forehead under Naruto's finger. He felt his body scream at him, wanting the pain to stop. Suddenly, it stopped. He fell, limp as the strings help his body. He could feel them dig into his wrists and ankles. His head was pounding, his eye unfocused for a moment before he refocused with a shake of his head. What did you do? Hey. You know, looking at the seals, I know this hurts, but let's find out just how much, shall we? He formed a hand seal, one that he recognized. He knew what he had done. He knew just how much trouble he was in now. Pain exploded throughout his skull. His vision turned white. He heard himself scream, the pain being too much to bear. He couldn't fight for even a moment, the pain was too much. It was absolute. It stopped. But, how long did it last? He didn't know. Is this really the caged bird seal? I knew it could cause pain, but that was. Hey. It worked even better than expected. You know, that seal seemed to be rather old, so I decided to give it a few upgrades. Glad to see that it causes more pain than the original. The strings unfurled, releasing him and making him fall to the ground. He didn't waste any time, quickly making a hand seal and looking up toward Naruto. He saw the blonde make another hand seal, probably preparing a jutsu, but Danzo's was already ready. Wind style, vacuum wa. He stopped, his breath rushing out of his body as a wave of exhaustion struck him. His vision blurred, his chakra seeming to be so far away. His heartbeat filled his ears, his vision distorting as Naruto's voice echoed throughout the room. Hey. I told you, didn't I? I made a few upgrades. Why should I let you use your chakra against me? He felt a foot touch his shoulder, rolling him onto his back and pushing against his chest, keeping him pinned to the floor. You understand your situation, Danzo. You're mine now. That seal on your forehead means you belong to me. The foot pushed down, his ribs cracking at the force Naruto was exerting. Now, tell me, where is the Two Tails? He wheezed, gathering his remaining strength to tell him what he wanted to know. Hidden SS sound. He saw Naruto grin, the foot lifting off him. He took a deep breath, regretting it afterward as he began to cough violently. He heard the door open, Naruto beginning to take his leave. See ya soon, Danzo. He laid on the ground, listening as the footsteps echoed down the hallway, eventually disappearing. He laid there a while longer, deciding to gather his strength after about an hour and pulling himself up. He limped and grabbed his cane off the floor, hobbling over to the mirror on one end of the office. He removed the bandages around his head, looking at the seal that lay atop his head. He glared angrily at the symbol, a smiley face with a wide grin, AS going through it diagonally. He smashed a fist against the mirror, cracking it, but he was too weak to break it. He stared at the grinning symbol through the cracked mirror, feeling defeated. Hidden groaned as they finally reached the large underground room, staring up at the enormous statue. He heard the two Jinchuriki being dropped on the floor, snorting slightly in amusement. Well, now we get to stand still for days straight as we seal these things up. Isn't there a faster way to do this? He heard Kakazu growl, dragging the blonde in front of the statue. Shut it, Hidden. Let's get this over with so we can get back to work. He scowled at the older man, watching as Sound Ninja carried the other Jinchuriki and moved them out of the way. Seriously, more bounty hunting. I thought we were done with that. Don't we have enough money, ya damn penny pincher? Kakazu glared at him with contempt, Hidden ignoring it expertly. You can never have too much money. He rolled his eyes, folding his hands behind his head. Yeah, whatever. As long as you let me sacrifice the next ones to Jashin, I don't really care. He looked around, seeing the sound ninja preparing to defend him as they performed the sealing. He thought that leader was being way too cautious, but whatever. It wasn't his job anyway. Still, these guys didn't look very impressive. He looked over to one of them, one with snow-white hair and sharpened teeth. Hey, you. Are you sure you guys are gonna be able to protect us? You don't look all that impressive. The boy scoffed toward him and was about to reply before he was interrupted. It's fine, Sugetsu. Allow me. Hidden looked to his right, seeing someone else approach him. It was another of those zombie things. He was against them at first, unsure how Jashin felt about them, but after seeing what the one with them could do, he didn't really mind. There is nothing to worry about. Even if they get past the regular ninja, I will be more than up for the task. He raised an eyebrow toward him, wondering who this one was. Oh yeah, and who are you? The zombie bowed his head, before introducing himself. My name is Kimimaro. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.